If you've not heard the news, Microsoft Gaming has made a deal with Activision Blizzard to buy them for a cool $68.7 billion. This has left gamers with many questions about different IPs, people, and companies. But I wanted to specifically talk about World of Warcraft and what it could mean for the franchise's future. And now that the dust has settled, we can get into it. First, I wanted to address the small but real negative reaction. There aren't many, but I've seen some that think this will be bad for WoW. I couldn't disagree more. WoW is the only game that hates me as much as I love it. Unfortunately, like many, my frustrations with the game and Blizzard won out last year and I unsubbed after years of play. I know many other content creators felt the same way. My point is that I don't think it's hard to argue that WoW is at its lowest point in quite some time, and it simply can't get any worse. There are already loads of people that hit the same tipping point and left. So worst case scenario, nothing changes, people continue to leave, and those who are already not playing the game continue to not play the game. Therefore, a shake-up at Blizzard's core is not only necessary, but it might be the only thing possible to win over the millions that have left WoW over the years. And even if this deal doesn't do that, I don't see how it could make it worse. Next is the subscription and move to Game Pass. I've heard some believe that WoW would move away from the subscription and move to a free-to-play model. I don't think this will happen. World of Warcraft still makes a lot of money for Activision Blizzard through its subscription, and I don't believe Microsoft will force any significant changes. Microsoft has made a number of rather large acquisitions over the last few years. All the interviews and news from those acquisitions show that Microsoft's mentality to those purchases is to keep helping the developers do what they're doing and what they want to do in the future, and not force them to do something they don't want. So unless Blizzard themselves plan on going free-to-play, I don't think WoW's business model will change anytime soon. I also don't think it'll be included in Game Pass, which I know is a bummer, and people will disagree with me. I hope I'm wrong. Microsoft has been working hard on making Game Pass subscription a must-have deal for consumers and the place to be for developers, and adding a WoW subscription is precisely the kind of incentive to keep that loop flowing. But this isn't the first MMO Microsoft has acquired. Elder Scrolls Online found itself under Microsoft Gaming after Bethesda was purchased in March 2021. Now, ESO subscription is optional, so unlike World of Warcraft, you don't need a subscription to play the game. It's simply an option that comes with in-game perks. With that said, an ESO subscription is not included in Xbox Game Pass. You get a discount for the in-game store and access to the Morrowind expansion, but not a subscription. And again, I get that the situation is different with ESO not requiring a subscription to access, but I think the argument for a WoW sub on Game Pass is the same argument of an ESO sub on Game Pass. The idea of enticing gamers, especially those who already pay for a subscription, to switch to Game Pass in order to grow that user base. Yet they haven't done it. So just looking at the only evidence we have, I don't think a WoW sub will be part of Game Pass. But again, I hope I'm wrong. Some believe WoW will get a console version and possibly port it to other devices. First, many people seem to talk about this like it would be bad. This would only be good, as more players in an MMO is just good. There is no real downside. Having said that, I don't think this will happen. Going back to my point earlier, Microsoft Gaming isn't going to push ideas onto the developers that they don't want or aren't interested in. And Blizzard hasn't shown any genuine interest in porting WoW to consoles. But if they wanted to do that, I'm sure Microsoft would help. I just don't think it's something they want to do or will be looking to do anytime soon. The last significant change is for the development team themselves. Putting aside all the scandals that have come to light over the past few months at Activision Blizzard and talking purely about making games. For the past few years, Activision Blizzard has been a miserable place to make games. If you're unfamiliar with all the stories and interviews with anonymous developers at the studio, the summary is, the business model at Activision is looking at only their most profitable games as successes and everything else as failures. This means that they would take something that is working, reach its most profitable point, reach the point where it makes the most money, and as soon as it dips down, it is considered failed. Even if it is still technically making a profit, it isn't as much as its previous iteration. It is now a failure and will be forgotten. We can see this in Activision's history. We see this in franchises that they've squeezed to death like Tony Hawk, Guitar Hero, Skylanders, even Call of Duty. It just so happens that COD keeps surviving the squeeze, so the squeeze continues. But what's worse is not only is a project judged on its previous iteration, but against each other. In other words, if your idea isn't going to provide the next Call of Duty, then Activision isn't interested. And we can see that even in WoW. When pitching the next expansion, you're not pitching the expansion with refreshing ideas or what you think is the most fun. You're pitching the expansion and why it'll make more money than the previous. And we can see that with the number of chores and time sinks added to the game. But if your new expansion doesn't make more money than the previous or isn't competitive with other projects, then your team will see cuts, like the many we've seen at Blizzard over the years. And you'll get fewer resources, but the expectation of making more money doesn't end. So developers end up in this impossible spiral of fewer resources to achieve more until finally there is no more franchise. This will change, thankfully. This is not how Microsoft has made games or supported their new acquisitions. Different games and projects are judged on their own merits. Of course, Microsoft wants to make money, but they've not adopted this squeeze mentality. If anything, they want to provide as much variety as possible. This is the thing I am most excited about for World of Warcraft. To allow the developers to concentrate on what's fun, on making a game they want to play and not what will squeeze the most money and time from players. Sadly, we will have to wait quite some time. It seems the timeline has been pushed aside for all the commotion and news around the acquisition. The deal hasn't been made. A promise to uphold the deal has been made. The deal isn't expected to close until Microsoft's fiscal year 2023, ending in June 2023, so I wouldn't expect any changes for another year at least. This means we probably won't see any changes to Shadowlands or TBC, but it gives us hope for Wrath of the Lich King and the next retail expansion.